Hello and welcome back to this download idealistic crusade. This video is a short one, just going over the couple titles I picked up in Criterion's flash sale. I should say 3 to be exact. I wanted to focus primarily on the 2 new releases that I was really excited for, and then quickly went through the rest of the catalog trying to find something to hit that free shipping threshold. And of course, as soon as their flash sale starts happening, their site gets overloaded pretty quickly and titles quickly start disappearing. So I knew these 2 new releases would go pretty quickly, and it seems they were rather popular, as they should be. So I just figured I'd throw together a quick video going over these. So the first title I got, that was the extra to hit that free shipping threshold, which is pretty much situated around once you find 3 Blu-rays that are 50% off, that'll get you over that $50 free shipping threshold. And so I grabbed one of my favorite films of all time, one that I stupidly had not gotten yet. And I just, every time I even think of this film, I'm like, oh crap, I don't have the Criterion version yet. So spine number 939, I had to grab my favorite of the Archer's films, A Matter of Life and Death, which of course here in the States was called Stairway to Heaven, but this is an absolutely breathtaking, emotional journey that reduces me to a bubbling puddle of tears every time I see it. It's one of the most exquisitely beautiful films ever made, and is without question my favorite of the Archer's films of Powell and Pressburger. And of course, being a giant David Niven fan, that just sweetens the deal, as it were. And this is from a beautiful new Sony-sourced 4K restoration. And I don't know if this will come to UHD, because of course the Red Shoes is coming to UHD, but this is just one I had been meaning to get for so long, and it's again my favorite Archer's film. And it does have a pretty substantial, nice extras package that does advance over the old Sony DVD set that finally brought this film to DVD here in the US. But yeah, if you've never seen this film, it's just exquisite, and it is one of the most beautifully photographed films you'll ever see, because it's not only the trademark Archer's use of Technicolor, but it's jumping back and forth between 3-strip Technicolor and black and white, and most inventively, it is black and white for all the scenes in the film's version of Heaven, and of course Technicolor on all of the Earthbound scenes, so it's sort of inverting the traditional idea. And this film's particular view on the in and outs of daily heavenly life is just one I find absolutely astounding. I think that section of this film, that part of this film, is just as important as anything else in this. And it's a film I don't even like to talk about the plot, really, because it's one of those films that gets you right from the get-go. And again, I cannot watch this film without being just an emotional mess at the end of it. It's that beautiful. So that's why I had to grab a Spine 939, A Matter of Life and Death. Again, my absolute favorite Archer's film. The interior, and I will be doing a full review of this and the other 2 titles when I get the time to go through every last supplement as well as the feature. And now we move on to the 2 new releases, these being Spines 1099 and 1100 respectively. These are also fully loaded special editions. They are contenders for best release of the year. This one in particular is one I have wanted to come to Blu-ray in any way, shape, or form forever. It's a film that is supremely underrated and beyond important, not just for its star and where he was in his career, and how this broke him out of being the star in terms of the second lead throughout the 30s and 40s, or into the 40s, but it's also important for the film's writer and for the studio and for the emergence of what would be eventually become known as film noir and its transition out of the gangster films of the 30s. But also it is one of the great films directed by Raoul Walsh, and that is of course 1940s Warner Brothers masterpiece High Sierra. Here on a beautiful new Criterion version. This was a complete surprise announcement, and as soon as it was announced, I was absolutely dying to get my hands on this. But what's most amazing about this is it's a 2-disc affair, so not only do you get a wonderful amount of special features, but the really interesting part, and the part that totally bowled me over when I saw it in the release, and it was like, oh, you guys are like speaking my language, and this is what pushes this into quite possibly Disc of the Year territory. But on the second disc, it includes the Raoul Walsh directed Western remake called Colorado Territory from 1949, starring Joel McCrea, and that's a film I haven't seen in a very long time. It's usually very obscure, and they had to actually go out of their way to do a new transfer and include it here. So I am just bowled over with this. I cannot wait to dig into this. I have been just drooling ever since I saw the release, because as a giant Bogart fan, High Sierra it's really the key film in his filmography for breaking him into stardom. It didn't do it overnight, but without High Sierra, we would not have The Maltese Falcon. We would have not have gotten Casablanca. High Sierra was the film that proved his worth as a dramatic actor. It had been there in the gangster films. He just burst onto the screen in The Petrified Forest in 1936, but then after that, it's like Warner Bros. Didn't know really what to do with him, and so he became gangster number 2, who gets killed in the penultimate or the last reel by Cagney or Robinson or even George Raft. And it's only a few times where you see him get to really use his acting chops, particularly in films like the great underrated Warner Brothers film Black Legion, which has a great Bogart performance. It's a great film. But it's High Sierra that really shows the true depth of his range. It's one of his greatest characterizations, and helped along by this was the fact that the film was written by John Huston. So this was a success not only for Bogart, but for John Huston as well, and is really what allowed him to earn the director's chair he coveted, and that's what brought us 1941's The Maltese Falcon, which it's not only my favorite Bogart film, not only probably the first tried and true dyed-in-the-wool film that could be considered a film noir in its entirety, and finally the third film adapting Dashiell Hammett's original source novel and really doing it justice and keeping close to the original Hammett text, but is also one of my absolute favorite films of all time, and one of the few films I consider absolutely is completely 100% perfect in every way. But without High Sierra, we would have not gotten the Falcon. Bogart would have not become the star and icon as we know him. It would have happened eventually, but High Sierra is a real watershed point, and it is a classic, great film, again, directed by the incredible Raoul Walsh, who never gets the credit he so richly deserves. And I think this might assist in some of that, because people looking at this will now be able to look at the Western version of the same story, but done at the opposite end of the 1940s. They have assembled a beautiful extras package. The actual scan for High Sierra is a 4K digital restoration, I presume originally headed by Warner Brothers, because this is a title that myself and many others had hoped would be at least a Warner Archive Blu-ray at some point, but this is a unbelievable surprise. So in addition to the new 4K restoration, we get the new presentation of Colorado Territory, which I should note, I know already it's not a full-on restoration. I believe they had to go and get a print from the Library of Congress, so it is pretty much an as-is. It's not a full-blown restoration, but it is a full 1080p presentation and a new scan. But again, it's not going to compare to the 4K digital restoration on High Sierra. There is a documentary on Raoul Walsh. There's pieces on Bogart, and this film's importance in terms of his where it came in the placement of his career at Warner Brothers, and then also the radio adaptation of High Sierra. And then really interestingly, they're going to include audio interview excerpts with the original author of the source novel, W.R. Burnett, who is also a key figure in the emergence of crime fiction and hard-boiled literature, which eventually developed into film noir in the 1940s. And many of his stories were adapted into absolute classic films, this just being one of them. There's some other really interesting-looking featurette pieces, and to top all that off, there is another of these really cool things Criterion has been doing in the recent past of having basically a sit-down interview conversation between two different critics about a particular film and the various cast and crew and how it affected them and its place in time. So we've got another one of these, plus a great booklet essay. So I am just absolutely over the moon, and I cannot wait to dig into this release. This has been one of my most eagerly anticipated titles. It's one of the absolute classic Warner Brothers films. It's one of the handful of the truly iconic Bogart films. If you're a Bogart fan and you haven't seen this, and unfortunately it is much more unknown and lesser discussed outside of, hardcore Bogart fan circles or fans of Walsh or fans of the great Ida Lupino, or just classic Warner Brothers or gangster films. It doesn't get discussed as much as the bigger name titles, and it deserves to be in there because it is that iconic. And again, without this film, we would not have the Bogart icon that we have. It would be different. And this was the film that really broke him through and broke him out of being gangster number 2 who gets killed in the last reel of every picture by whoever is the lead. So I am so excited to dig into this, and I will be doing a full-blown review once I'm able to go through all of the extras and the new transfer. And I am so excited for Colorado Territory as well. I have not seen that film in years, so I am just really excited to finally be able to do a dream double header of doing a double feature between the two, and being able to compare and contrast the versions at length, because Colorado Territory is included on its own separate Blu-ray transfer. And then Spine number 1100. This is a title that already has a lot of people talking. Its announcement, like High Sierra, was a massive announcement because this is another beloved genre classic and is also the subject of a new 4K restoration presented here on Blu-ray. I'm, of course, talking about the 1957 science fiction horror genre classic, beloved film, The Incredible Shrinking Man, based on the original Richard Matheson story, The Shrinking Man, or I should say novel, which itself is a classic of science fiction and horror. I even love the modern art approach that Criterion has gone with here. This is a brand new 4K restoration of, again, a beloved title that we've all seen many times, and definitely still has the power to freak the literal heck out of anybody who sees it for the first time or who has read Matheson's original novel, which itself is great and I do highly recommend. But I am just, like High Sierra, this was a total surprise announcement from Criterion, and is definitely them getting another gem from a studio's library. There is a whole brand new extras package, just with some of the really big, iconic, great names in terms of film historians and critics, but also industry professionals, because this film's effects are very long-lasting, and there are many who have expressed their love for this particular film. So just to basically gloss over the extras package, the new 4K restoration with the original mono, an entire documentary on the great underrated director Jack Arnold, who not only directed this film, but also Creature from the Black Lagoon and It Came from Outer Space, and a number of other genre classics. Then there's an interview with the son of Richard Matheson. Again, the importance of Richard Matheson, not only on films and fantasy and horror, but in literature just in general. His influence and importance is just mind-boggling, and he's one of the names that does not ever get mentioned with the frequency that he should. And even his influence in horror films, because he did write a good number of the Roger Corman Poe films in the Poe cycle, and honestly, I would argue he wrote the best ones, and many other films and other films adapted from his work. So he's tied to everything from this film to the Corman Poe films to Burn Witch Burn to Hammer's great version of The Devil Rides Out, which he wrote the screenplay for, then a number of the all-time classic Twilight Zone episodes. Spielberg's Duel was based on a Matheson story. They still make films based on Matheson stories, and of course, his I Am Legend is still one of the great novels of science fiction and horror, and has never been adapted quite correctly. And he also wrote The Comedy of Terrors, which is my favorite comedy horror film of all time, and is blisteringly hysterical. So just to finally have this particular iconic film version of one of his most iconic novels is really amazing. So there's a lot on Matheson in the extras. There's pieces on the music of the film. They did include, like some other labels have been doing, the 8mm cut down home version, which is always fun as a really cool curio to look at what you would have had as the video version, say, in the 50s and 60s. Then there's pieces that feature Joe Dante and Ben Burt, along with Greg Barron, talking about the special effects. And key for me, and what sealed the deal, I mean, I was already going to get this, but what pushed it into the stratosphere of, oh my God, I got to get this stat, is the commentary features the great Tom Weaver, who is my favorite film commentator in terms of special editions, DVDs, Blu-rays, and is one of the great classic horror and science fiction historians. So anytime his name is on a book or a commentary, it's like, okay, that's immediate. That pushes this from a I really want to get this and look at it, and that pushes it into the I have to. And of course, this being one of the absolute great science fiction films of the 1950s, one of the most iconic science fiction films, and a film that still has the power to make you question things and stick in the mind, and is eerie beyond belief, and horrifying when you think of the implications of the title and what we see the main character go through as he gradually wastes away. Is just one of those films I saw as a child. I never forgot it. I never will forget it. And, this makes the perfect pairing with reading Matheson's original novel. So I cannot wait to dig into this and the other two. And I just wanted to put this together as a brief video about what I got in the Criterion flash sale. And if you managed to get things in the flash sale, because it only ran for 24 hours, definitely, comment below with what you picked up or what you'd like to get. Or if you're, like me, very excited about some of the new releases, and maybe your thoughts on some of these particular titles. But until then, keep spinning your disc, keep physical media alive, and let's keep supporting our fantastic boutique labels as long as we possibly can. Thanks ever so much for watching.